Hey everybody, good evening and a huge welcome to this special webinar with Jordan Anderson on intermittent fasting versus intermittent snacking. So this is Josie Tong. We're broadcasting from Sydney, Australia, and so welcome everybody. I had the pleasure of meeting Jordan at a super success event last month in the office, and really I was so impressed. Jordan spoke so well and he had very in-depth knowledge. So I thought I'd invite him to our webinar. I know that he's got something cool to share with all of us here. And so guys, there's a short bio about Jordan. Oh my gosh, he's got 10 years, more than 10 years of competitive running experience. Jordan has developed a thorough understanding of how to train effectively to maximize performance while preventing injury and staying healthy. And Jordan is the current 2-time world life-saving 2-kilometer beach run champion and is training towards achieving his 3rd title in Netherlands at Rescue 2016. He competed at university level in Canada and was a nationally ranked cross-country runner. He has raced in athletics since 2003 in distances from 800 meters to 3,000 meters. Jordan completed his bachelor's degree in kinesiology, that's the study of human movement, from the University of Waterloo in Canada. He's an accredited coach with Athletics Australia and is currently completing his PhD in exercise, health, and performance, studying the biomechanics of sport. Through his research, he has co-authored 11 scientific journal articles that investigated strategies for injury prevention, rehabilitation, and athlete performance. Using his 6 years of clinical experience, Jordan has combined scientific evidence with clinical practice to help advance treatment for sport-related injuries. Jordan has over 9 years of experience coaching a variety of sports, specializing in running and pool and surf lifesaving. Jordan says that nutrition is a critical part of athlete performance, but it is not given enough attention. To provide the greatest chance for success in sport, nutrition must be practiced daily. Jordan uses his research experience to find the most up-to-date information for athletes of all sports. He shares this in his blogs, seminars, and social media sites to offer as much support to athletes and coaches as possible. And Jordan says that he has a philosophy that is driven by quality training rather than quantity. This approach is effective in training, in preventing repetitive stress, injuries, and maximizing success. And he says that if you want to run a fast time, you have to run fast. Sport-specific training and proper nutrition are the keys to success. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jordan Anderson. So thank you so much, Jordan, for being on the call today. We're so looking forward to your talk today. So it's all yours now.
Thanks so much, Josie. That was a great introduction. Thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much to Usana for putting on these different educational opportunities. I think it very much enriches associates' toolboxes whenever they're speaking to prospects or just people in general about health. And if you're listening in and watching and you're not currently a Usana associate, thank you again for joining us for, again, just learning a little bit more about the body and some physiology and looking at a bit of the research. So I'm just gonna pop things up here. So as Josie mentioned, we are going to be discussing the differences between intermittent fasting and intermittent snacking. What are those two terms mean, and how can those contribute to our health? Now, a bit more of a background about myself. I have a company called Maple Leaf Performance. We're focused on everything that has to do with athlete performance and general health. We post all over social media, and we started up a YouTube channel with things like this seminar so that the information can be out there and easier for people to access. So I'll pop up this slide at the end of the presentation, but feel free to check us out on Facebook or YouTube channel. I'm going to be referring to our blog site on WordPress throughout this seminar tonight. We put fun stuff up about all different types of sporting events on Instagram. You can also send us a quick email at mapleleafperformance@gmail.com if you have any questions, because I love having these types of conversations. So back to the topic. We are going to be discussing a few things. One is fasting, what it is and what it does to our bodies. And what are the benefits of intermittent fasting? We're also going to be discussing the practicality and side effects of different diets and how we can integrate them into our lives in a realistic way. We'll also talk about different options than some of these popular diets that are out in the market and out in the internet world these days. So that's a bit of an outline about what we're going to be going through. Now, if you have any questions, please write them down. Feel free to type them in the chat box. We are going to have about a 25-minute question and answer period at the end. And that'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions and stimulate some discussion around these kind of things. So before we get started, we just want to have a little bit of a talk about energy metabolism inside the body. So metabolism is simply our body breaking down things so we can use them as energy. So in a normal fed state, so 3 square meals a day, kind of snacking throughout, basically a typical westernized diet that we would all experience, our body uses carbohydrates as the #1 fuel source. Now, again, in a westernized diet, generally somewhere between 45 and 65% of our daily caloric intake, or the energy intake, comes from carbohydrates. So these again are our #1 source, is our #1 source for fuel. Now, then our body also uses fats for fuel, and we kind of have that spread out throughout the body, and we also take in somewhere in the area of anywhere kind of 20 to 30% of our diets are generally made up of fats, and then the rest, kind of 10 to 15%, is protein. So in a fasted state, now what we mean by this is restricting our energy intake for any period of time. So many religions go through a fasting month or several months of the year. So that is an example of what we'll be talking about. It's also become more common in the past few years for individuals to use intermittent fasting as a way to control weight and look at different health benefits. So in a fasted state, our body kicks into survival mode, and we start using fewer carbohydrates for our energy, and our bodies start using more fats. So this is just a little bit of a framework as we move forward, right? So now we move on to intermittent fasting. As mentioned, it is reducing the amount of energy that you intake, so reducing the amount of food you intake for a certain period of time, or completely abstaining from eating for a few hours of the day. So the impacts of this inside our bodies, we go through, as we mentioned, this survival mechanism. So when there's less food available, decreased food availability, our bodies start increasing our energy conservation. Now, you may have heard of the term ketosis. All ketosis means is the use of ketone bodies for energy, or the breakdown of ketone bodies. Now, what are those? Well, essentially we get those from fat. So in a very simple way, ketosis is the breakdown of fats for energy. Now, this change and transfer from carbohydrates to fat, it seems like a great idea. And again, it's been marketed and encouraged across several different diets and by several different experts. However, it takes a while for this to happen. And generally, give or take, it takes about 3 weeks for our bodies to really move into full ketosis. And some studies suggest it may take even longer. Now we'll talk about what we need to do if we're striving for a state of ketosis for our energy source, being fat. But this is just a bit of an overview about what goes on inside the body, okay? So now, let's look at the benefits of intermittent fasting. Now, going through a few pieces of the scientific literature, I found papers that discussed how weight loss and cardioprotective effects are associated with intermittent fasting. Waist circumference, percent body fat, and blood pressure all also improved during a short period of fasting for some individuals. And in a review article, Lee and Longo highlighted that there is great potential for fasting to be used as a clinical intervention to improve individuals' health status and protect against a lot of the degenerative diseases that are really plaguing our society these days. So there is a large body of scientific evidence that does support fasting and its health benefits. Now, the difficulty with some of these studies is that there are some big limitations. Now, the one is that out of the studies that were just presented and a few more that I'd reviewed, the longest study was 3 months. Now, this is actually pretty good for a clinical trial. Anything longer, it gets very, very expensive. So, 12-week study, it is pretty good. However, we don't know what happened to these participants after this 3-month trial. Out of all the studies that I looked at, there was only one that had to look at the sensations of hunger and participant satisfaction while they're going through this fasting test. And there was only a measurement of sensations of hunger and satisfaction at the beginning and right at the end of this study. So unfortunately, we don't really get an idea of what these individuals went through, what kind of stress, how hungry they were, all those kind of things as their bodies were adapting to this new type of diet, right? And there's also no specific description of any type of diets. So, with all of this information, it's great. Yeah, sure. Intermittent fasting is kind of the new key to health. And indeed, as mentioned, there is a lot of support for it. However, none of the studies described what these individuals were eating throughout the day. So you kind of have this goal or a destination to try to get to, but no roadmap to get there. And the downfall of that is then individuals are really left to their own devices to sort out how they're going to get there. So again, there are a few limitations that are pretty tough with this idea of fasting. Now, there are a few common fasting diets. One is called the 5 and 2 diet. Now, the ins and outs of this diet is that you're meant to eat whatever you're used to eating in your regular diet 5 days a week. But then for 2 days a week, you're meant to restrict your caloric intake, so the amount of food that you eat, to 25% of your regular daily intake. Now, for women, that's about 500 kilocalories a day, and for men, that's 600 kilocalories a day. So if you consider that typically regularly active, and this isn't somebody that goes to the gym every day, this is someone who's active, 4 to 5 days a week. For women, they generally burn 2,000 calories, and for men, it's somewhere between 2,200 to 2,400 calories a week. So this is a very significant restriction in a caloric intake. Sorry, I should also mention that we call them calories, but they're actually a measurement of kilocalories. So it is very much kind of a significant restriction of what they do ingest. Okay, but again, this diet is shown to be beneficial. So what's called a 16-hour fast. Now, I do apologize. I'm just gonna do a quick try to clean it up here. So sorry, bear with me. There we go. Sorry, we're just getting a bit of a lag. We should be okay now. There we go. So the 16-hour fast is another common fasting diet. Now, from this one, you essentially don't eat from dinner the night before all the way until lunch the next day. Now, you're kind of allowed to have a coffee with maybe a little bit of milk, sugar-free chewing gum to keep you going. But essentially, the idea is after you eat dinner, skip breakfast and hold your fast all the way until lunch. Then you're meant to eat at regular times for the remaining 8 hours of the day. So make sure that your lunch is, at 11:30 every day, or at 12:30 or at 1 or whatever it is every day, and that your dinner is indeed at 6 p.m. Every day as well. The idea is to be very regular for 8 hours of the day, and then restrict what you eat for the rest of the time. Now, if you tend to be more active, so if you run, if you go to the gym, if you do fitness classes, then you're going to want to match the amount of carbohydrates to the activities that you do. So increase your carb intake a little bit more. Now, as we spoke about before, this makes it a bit more difficult for your body to move into that ketosis state. However, we really got to make sure we listen to our bodies and our activity levels. If we don't have enough energy available in our bloodstream and in our body, then our bodies look to other sources, and a very readily available source of energy is protein in the form of muscle. So to avoid muscle wasting, you got to make sure that you match your energy intake with your energy output. So again, these are just kind of typical diets that we might see. Now, looking to the scientific research, there are many that looked at the effects of skipping breakfast. Now, they range from different controls and different stipulations, but we just have a summary. Some found that there is no effects of weight loss in free-living adults. So in this specific study, the only control that they really had was one group ate breakfast and one group did not. And then they were asked to go about their daily lives. They had to log what they were eating so that could be tracked. And that was essentially it. But again, the results showed that there wasn't a significant effect on weight loss. There's another study also had evidence of lower daily energy intake with breakfast. So that means that the total amount of calories that they ate throughout the day was lower when people had breakfast. And that individuals who skipped breakfast in their study, they had higher fasting total and LDL cholesterol. Now, LDL is low density lipoprotein cholesterol. It's the bad type of cholesterol. Our body needs cholesterol to operate effectively, and there is healthy cholesterol. However, these are more or less the two bad numbers. So these two were higher in the group that skipped breakfast. There was another study that concluded, and this was a review article that concluded that skipping breakfast was not an effective way to manage weight. So we now have some scientific concerns behind skipping breakfast. And so I'll just bring up this one quote, and we'll go through a few points of it because it was very, very pointed at the risks of skipping breakfast. So in obese adults, daily breakfast leads to greater physical activity during the morning. So that's great. People want to be more active when they have breakfast. Whereas morning fasting results in a partial dietary compensation. So that means greater energy intake later in the day. So again, going back to that other study that had mentioned that individuals kind of compensated for skipping breakfast. So if our goal is to lose weight, for example, which is a realistic health goal, skipping breakfast may actually end up in us having to do more physical activity to match the amount of energy we put in. Because weight loss is very, very simple. If you have more energy out than energy in, you will lose weight, okay? But there are also a lot of other complex factors around that, weight is not the be-all, end-all, factor in health. Then the last bit of this statement, there were no differences between the groups in weight change and most other health outcomes, but insulin sensitivity was increased with breakfast relative to fasting. So insulin sensitivity is a good thing. If you have that high, that means that your body can regulate blood sugar levels very effectively. And you may have heard individuals who are at risk of diabetes or who are diabetic or who have different cardiovascular concerns that insulin floating around the body is not a good thing. It causes damage on the walls of our blood vessels. So with breakfast, we can keep our overall insulin levels low because they're working better. There's more sensitivity versus individuals who skip breakfast. They may have poorer insulin sensitivity, and therefore their body needs more insulin in the bloodstream to regulate blood sugar levels. And that is along the path to insulin resistance, which is a characteristic of type 2 diabetes. So what tentative conclusions can we make? Well, it's very clear fasting can have health benefits, absolutely. And this presentation is not meant to bash intermittent fasting and say that people should do it. I actually support intermittent fasting, but when it is done well, because again, there are great cardioprotective as well as protection against cancer, as was shown in the Usana Health Sciences Facebook page not a few weeks ago. Now, that said, it matters what and how much we eat. As mentioned, a few of those other studies that, okay, well, if we fast throughout the morning, it's very important to make sure that we pay attention to what we eat throughout the rest of the day. And all those feelings of hunger and wanting to eat, we have to find coping mechanisms so that we don't turn to food. Because naturally, when you get hungry, you're going to eat, right? It's the body's way of telling you that you need to eat. Another conclusion we can make now is that physical activity is very important. Again, the matching of energy in with energy out, it's still a very important factor. So, just jumping on a diet is not the be-all, end-all solution of all of this. So let's look at a few of the practicalities and side effects of intermittent fasting. So again, the question came up, what do we eat? What makes up a diet that has intermittent fasting as a strategy for monitoring our health? Well, if you head on over to mapleleafperformance.wordpress.com, one of the first blog posts we put out was titled Eat Real Food. You can't go wrong with this. Go to your local farmer's market. The more colorful the vegetables, the better. Go to your local butcher to get your meat, those kind of things. Similar to Usana, different farms have to pay a shelving fee to get their products into our supermarkets and into our grocery stores. So if you go to a farmer's market, you're closer to the source, and you got to start thinking, if one farm or one company has to pay a grocery store to have their products put on the shelves, what is happening to the money that is supposed to go in the quality of their product? So eat real food. The other side effects of intermittent fasting include hunger, mood changes, fatigue, and concentration issues. Now, if you know who he is, Tim Ferriss is a huge fan of intermittent fasting, IF he calls it. But he admittedly, and I quote, that he feels useless when he starts onto this intermittent fasting phase whenever he jumps into it a few times a year. And I've experienced the exact same thing. I wanted to see what this whole craze was about. So, I did it pretty religiously for 2 weeks. And my partner, she begged me to start eating breakfast. I was doing that 16-hour fast. She was telling me that I was grumpy in the morning, and I realized it myself. I didn't want to talk. I was silent in the morning just because I didn't want to say something mean to her because I was all grumpy because I was hungry. I wasn't effective and productive in the morning. It took until after lunch for me to have a productive day. And then by then, you just feel like you've wasted half the day because you really have. So there are a lot of side effects as your body gets used to this caloric restriction, and that's just normal. And what, a lot of books and a lot of gyms and a lot of personal trainers that push this intermittent fasting thing, they don't warn you of these things. So you end up experiencing yourself and then falling off that bandwagon and just really feeling crummy about yourself, thinking, oh, everyone's doing this great diet and I can't do it. I can't keep it up. I can't concentrate. What does that say about me? So there are a lot of side effects when you start changing your diet severely, and it's very important to be aware of them before you get into it. Now, the other concern is making sure that you get all of your micronutrients. Now, supplementation is a great way to ensure that, not only for a healthy diet, but for individuals with different health concerns, supplementation can be very effective. Again, if you go to mapleafperformance.wordpress.com, we have a blog that's titled Top Up Your Micronutrients. And as a little tidbit to you associates, I ended up getting about a dozen people filling out the True Health Assessment just because they read that blog, and it was all about more information regarding micronutrients. So blogging, as a side note, is a great way to funnel a little bit more traffic through your business. So other practicalities, we got to look at fad diets versus eating habits. Now, in March of 2016, I gave a talk at the Australia Usana head office on healthy habits and how they can work for you. So again, if you head to our YouTube page, that I'll bring up that link at the end of the presentation, there is a link to an excerpt from that presentation, and it's just talking about a bunch of general things we can do to improve our lifestyles. But keep in mind that nutrition really defines our body composition, as well as physical activity and genetics. But what we eat is a big indicator of what our body's going to be made up of. And if we significantly change what we eat and we, start trimming fat and start realizing all these benefits, that's great. Keep in mind that if you go back to your previous diet, your body is going to revert back to what it looked like when you were eating that food. Right? And that's not to say it's necessarily a bad thing. It's something that we just need to be very aware of. So the whole idea of going on a diet, I actually am a big proponent for people to stop dieting. If you want to hear a lengthy rant on stop dieting, again, check out our YouTube channel and click on that healthy habits talk. I go on a good few minutes about why it's a bad thing to diet. Okay, and we'll touch on that a little bit soon again. Now, the other thing, side effects are cravings. Your body goes through this need for something, be it sweet, be it salty, be it whatever. And so we then start replacing food with different things. So coffee is a very common one. And again, on our blog, we talk about the negative effects of too much caffeine. Don't get me wrong, I love my coffee, but there can be negative effects with too much caffeine in your diet. So once we start getting really hungry, what are you going to do? Oh, well, I can't have a healthy sandwich yet. That's for lunch. Well, I'm going to have 3 coffees in the day. Well, and what's that doing to your heart? What's that doing to your nervous system? What's that? So there are just a lot of other side effects that we need to be aware of. And the other thing is it's just enjoyment and satisfaction. I love eating, and I know that a lot of people do too, and you should enjoy it. It shouldn't be a guilty thing. So whatever diet that you choose, make sure that you're well aware of all of the side effects and repercussions. So as promised, and I do believe that if you're going to steer someone away from something, you should give them an alternative. And again, that's not to say that you shouldn't do intermittent fasting. Just be aware of all the other repercussions. Now, intermittent snacking, I like to call it, is another option. Now, simply what this is eating small amounts of food often throughout the day. So generally, in a westernized diet, we tend to have maybe a big or no breakfast, coffee in the morning, kind of a sandwich for lunch, maybe a coffee in the afternoon to stop from crashing at 2 p.m., and then a very big dinner. And that's a typical pattern. So what intermittent snacking is decreasing the sizes of our big meals and making sure that we get all of our caloric intake throughout the day in smaller packages. So having, some trail mix or nuts or gorp throughout the day. The Usana peanutty bars are great little healthy snacks to have. Having half of a Nutrimeal shake in the morning after breakfast before lunch. Just these small snacks so that we can keep our energy levels up. Now, if we have a look at this blood glucose, so that's our blood sugar graph, if you look at the orange line, we generally kind of want to stay there because our blood sugar levels are very much related to our energies. So instead of having that red line spike and then a nice solid crash and needing a coffee after you get to the office in the morning, intermittent snacking or having a bunch of small meals throughout the day, it'll keep our blood sugar levels stable and it'll keep our energy levels stable. So this is kind of the idea of what we're going for. So the impact of consistent feeding. Again, we can maintain our blood sugar levels. So thinking back to our discussion of insulin levels, that helps keep them regulated as well. We're less hungry throughout the day. You get fewer of those starving, gut-wrenching, sore feelings if you're always peppering your body with a little bit of food throughout the day. You can decrease your mood swings because, again, those are very much related to our blood sugar levels. And again, you can maintain your energy levels similarly. It also allows us to focus on productivity. If your energy levels are up, then your brain's thinking and you're good to go. Similar to, or I guess in contrast to the point I made about concentration when you're getting into a fasted state towards ketosis, for example, our brain, when we're hungry, it literally can't function. The chemistry changes and our thought processes really go down the drain. So there's also less chance of missing out on our micronutrients from real food. Now, again, supplementation is a great way to ensure that you top all those up, but supplementation should be just that. It should supplement a healthy diet, okay? So what we eat matters, right? We want to focus on healthy fat. So veggies, the more colorful, the better, right? Mix them all together, have a stir fry. When you're making your pasta sauce, put in 3 different types of peppers or capsicum, as the Aussies like to call them, and zucchini and fun stuff like that. Quality protein. So again, get it right from the farm. Go find a farm that sells meat directly, or go find a local butcher, or tofu from a company that you trust and know that it's going to be the highest quality food, and also low GI carbs. Let me tell you, sweet potato is the food of the future. It's fantastic. It's easily sustainable, and it's got all the good stuff. So low glycemic index carbs through your kumara or your sweet potatoes. Now, that then comes down to, well, what are all the other things we can eat now that we kind of got an idea of how to make up our big meals? Well, and this is another tip for associates. We can look for healthy alternatives to snacking, because when people say snacking, they think of a Mars bar or snakes or any of that, garbage food. So instead of a muffin that costs $5 or $6, suggest a fudge delight. It costs $3.25, right? Instead of a coffee, well, let's look at, a quarter of a chocolate Nutrimeal mix with, a little bit of milk. It'll give you the same pick-me-up that a coffee does and fraction amount of caffeine. Instead of that delicious looking slice of cake, well, again, a Peanutty Bliss bar. It's half the price and double or more in the nutrition value. Instead of having a Coke or a Pepsi or something like that, again, why not a vanilla Nutrimeal to get that boost in energy? Now, I don't suggest that anyone has energy drinks, but I've been guilty of this on, late night drives when you have to get home from the office, or you're going on that road trip or whatever it may be. Well, Usana's got a very good alternative. The difference in sugar between any of the popular energy drinks and a Rev 3, it blows my mind. It is very impressive how they formulated a good tasting energy drink that doesn't have so much sugar in it. So these are things you can suggest to people. Instead of Tim Tams, again, admittedly, I love Tim Tams. They're delicious, but it's much better to have a berry nutty bar instead of Tim Tams. So these are simply just a few alternatives that you can suggest, and you can really see how choosing 2 of the items on the right-hand column, you can come up with enough snack to fill the gap between breakfast and lunch and between lunch and dinner. So these are different types of strategies to work through a healthy diet. So now looking back at what conclusions can we make after looking at all this stuff? Well, again, fasting, definitely, absolutely, there are health benefits. But again, we have to think about what and how much we eat. Physical activity is very important. So get out there, join a class, find a personal trainer, get in the pool, get back on the bike, go for a run. It's great on all different levels. Now, we also have to be very practical and think of the sustainability of what we choose to put in our diet. Okay, when I say stop dieting, take that out as a verb. It's a noun. A diet is simply made up of the things that we habitually eat. So if you focus on habitually eating healthy, real food, then you're going to be much better off than trying to jump on a bandwagon of all of these, lose 10 kilos in 10 days kind of fads. And that brings us to this bandwagon thing. Again, would you rather risk falling off the bandwagon, or do you want to be driving the car? Any personal trainer, gym, book, whatever, someone that suggests you go on a diet but doesn't give you a plan, they might as well be pushing you off the bandwagon. It is extremely difficult to make change. Changing habits, research suggests it takes 3 weeks of consistent, purposeful change to change even one habit. And generally, they only recommend 1 at a time. So if you're being told to cut out not only all of your favorite types of food, but the favorite places you like to go eat, snack time or dinners with friends, the social and emotional ties that we have with food, it's so difficult to change those. So again, unless you have a plan, you're not being set up for success. And those of you who are in the industry of making recommendations on diets, I always say it's best to visit a registered dietitian or nutritionist, but make sure that you don't set someone up for failure by not giving them the tools or the roadmap that they need to move forward. So thank you very much again, everyone, for joining us. Again, here are our links to our social media, that easy to remember YouTube link. All you need to do is jump on YouTube and search Maple Leaf Performance. And our logo is half of a Canadian flag and MLP, just in the little picture there. So check us out on Facebook, check us out on YouTube, have a look at our different blogs. Again, we like visiting local sporting events to show some pictures, all exciting. And please feel free to email, because I love having these discussions with any of your questions. So from there, I'll turn it back over to Josie. She promised that she'd put together a little bit of a list of any questions you may have. So again, any part of this presentation or have to do with nutrition, please feel free to pop them into the chat section and ask, so that we can move through this kind of stuff together.
Great, Jordan. That's really wonderful. Now, why do I have? Is that cool? There's an echo.
No, you're coming through clear for me, Josie.
Oh, is that okay? Anyways, it sounds like it's coming from your area. Wonder what it is. Is that better? That's it. Okay. Thank you, Jordan. So anyway, I'm interested to know more about the fasting and skipping breakfast, because I know that's quite common. I've heard a lot of people who just dash out the house and not have breakfast at all. So what would be your advice on when is the best time to really have breakfast? I heard a speaker say it should be 1 hour upon arising. So what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ideas about when we should eat breakfast versus or compared to when we wake up. I've heard that a great way to stay full, I guess, throughout the morning is to have up to 60 grams of protein right when you wake up in the morning. Now that's a lot of protein, a lot of protein. That's for some people their entire daily intake. But having a few eggs and a small bowl of cereal is a great option for kind of first thing in the morning when you wake up. The biggest, I think the one and really the only reason that I feel is valid for people skipping breakfast is the time. And I get it. It's great to sleep in every last minute that you can before you need to get up and catch the train to work. It's just too much of a hassle to put things together. So I always recommend to plan, the night before, just cut up a bunch of fruit and put it in a bowl and have some granola nearby. So you just need to mix them, throw a bit of yogurt on it, and you're good to go. Other great options is make a smoothie with any flavor of Nutrimeal. My girlfriend and I, every morning, we have a banana, strawberries, vanilla Nutrimeal, and a little bit of milk. And we mix that, and the two of us kind of cheers and walk out the door with our own portable shaker bottle. So there are a lot of options that you can do that, again, it doesn't take a lot of time at all. And just as long as you plan, you can set yourself up for success.
Thanks, Jordan. I love my Nutrimeal as well. We've got a question here from Carmen. And Carmen says, what are your thoughts on mixing up intermittent snacking and fasting throughout the week?
Yeah, it's the other tough thing about the literature is that the protocols or the schedule that they follow in a week, they're so different. I'm not sure of any research other than the 5-2 diet. So that's similar to what you were talking about, follow your regular diet for 5 days a week and then decrease the amount of food you take in for 2 days a week. That's a viable option. I feel is more viable than just skipping breakfast and doing the 16-hour fast. That is very tough. But I mean, fit it into your day. If you know that your Mondays and Thursdays are incredibly busy, that you have to get up early for your yoga class, and then you have to run off to work, and then after work you're busy with business meetings, and then you get home late, so you only have time for a bit of a dinner. The 5-2 diet kind of fits that lifestyle. And if you have personal ways to cope with the feeling of hunger throughout the day with these small healthy snacks that we mentioned, or if you're just too busy to feel hungry, that's a thing. I absolutely have spoken to some of my coworkers that's how they get through the 5-2 diet, that they're just too busy 2 days of the week and it works well for them. So they've found ways to, again, make the scientific research work very well for them.
Very good. We've got a question from Joe here. How long would you do the 16-hour for? Is it for a month? How long would you do the 16-hour for? A month?
Yeah, the 16-hour fasting diet, the studies that I read, they had people do it for 8 weeks. They had to do them for 10 weeks. But as I mentioned in the presentation, that once whatever diet that you eat, the shape and state that your body in is generally dependent on that. So whatever you eat, that's going to make up what your body is like. So if you're looking for a weight loss alternative, or you're looking for ways to be healthy, all of these cardioprotective and cancer protective benefits of fasting, it's very much more a lifestyle change rather than, I'm going to give it a go for 6 weeks. If you, and it's similar to the business that we're in network marketing, if you approach it with an exit strategy already planned out, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for waiting for that day that you can just pull the chute and stop the diet. So again, gradual change, I feel, is the best in implementing these things. And, you know, if you are going to go for a 16-hour fast diet and skip breakfast, again, there are a lot of crummy side effects. But I know people who've made it work for them. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, cool. So there's a question here about the reset program, Jordan. What is your opinion on the reset program?
The reset program, so there are a couple of different, I guess, forms of it. There's the 5-day reset and then the 28-day, if you want to continue on with it. Now, I don't know enough about liquid-only diets or liquid and snacking. And generally, again, I'm a big proponent of eat real food. However, the idea of the 5-day reset, I believe, is to kick cravings. And there's a lot of chemistry going on in the brain about when we get hungry and what we crave. And really, there is a chemical link or a pathway of hunger and sugar cravings and salt cravings in the brain. So if those can be minimized, if those pathways can be tuned down by this 5-day reset, that's a fantastic gain, you know? And the idea is to really jolt your body into wanting low GI food and healthy fat food and quality protein and following, you know, this healthy diet. So if you can get that benefit after a 5-day and then you naturally want healthy food and you naturally crave healthy food, then, you know, that's a positive outcome. And that wasn't a dramatic pause. I'm done. So do we have any other questions?
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like there's other questions here. Do you have any other information that you want to add to your presentation, Jordan?
Yeah, I just want to echo again that I'm not discounting fasting. Again, there are great benefits to it. However, and this is really in everything we do, and as Usana associates, I think it's our duty to provide education, information, and tools that, you know, not all of us are equipped to set up a diet for somebody else. And yeah, by all means, we probably shouldn't. However, we have access, or we can provide access to fantastic, nutritious tools that, again, instead of someone eating a muffin that's full of garbage and stuff that you don't want to put in your body, you know, give them the alternative, give people options of healthy snacks. And I think that is a very powerful thing. And if you always focus on being genuine with your offer of health, rather than trying to sell them on a fad diet, I think it will do very good things for people you speak to and our industry as a whole.
Yeah, that definitely, you are right there. Thank you so much, Jordan. You've done it again. You have given us so much valuable information as we go out there and spread the message of health and wellness. So thank you. And we look forward to really more webinars with you. And of course, face-to-face. Thanks so much. Super duper.
Thanks so much, Josie. I really appreciate that you're putting these things on. I think it's very useful to everyone. So thank you again.
And thank you everyone for being on the call. We will have the replay of this webinar via the Maple Leaf YouTube. All right, guys. Good night, everyone.